The fact is that the British were not interested in investing in education, and even the English language was brought in just to educate a narrow class of sort of interpreters between the governors and the governed, people who would help the British by constituting a buffer between them and the dirty masses whom they ruled. I mean, that was very much the attitude. Macaulay actually said this in his notorious Minute on Education in India, where he said that we need to create a class of Indians, Indian in skin and color, but English in opinions and tastes and morals and in intellect. That was those were his exact words. And it was to serve their purposes. You take language, for example. The British had no intention of imparting education to the masses of Indians and made it very clear they weren't going to spend the money doing that.
Lord Macaulay was an English politician, author, and historian who lived from 1800 to 1859. According to Britannica.com, he was perhaps best known for writing a 5-volume work, The History of England from the Accession of James II. This is fake quote. There's no record of Macaulay uttering the words cited by Sashi Tharoor in the quote in regard to dominating India in the 1835, though he did express thoughts in writing on the subject of Indian education at the time, including his conviction that the education of Indians should be conducted in English, not Indians' native languages. In order to establish whether or not the quote was real, look to Google Books. The Google Books website allows anyone to search the text of just about every book in the world for free. Search for various portions of the exact quote, placing quotation marks around the words. However, the only results found were in recent books that were written in the 21st century. A prominent quote from 1835 would not magically make its first appearance in literature nearly 2 centuries later. The quote was likely at least partially born on the internet and took on a life of its own, somehow finding its way from the web into recent books. Alternate version mentions Africa, not India. After the Google Books search, stumbled upon a helpful fact check by Agence France Presse AFP. In the AFP story, they reported on the same quote, except the word India had been replaced with Africa. It's unclear which version of the quote came first, but it was likely the one naming India. Nevertheless, AFP concluded the attribution of the quote to Macaulay is incorrect. Minute on Education. In Minute on Education, Macaulay argued that teaching in the English language was necessary to improve education in India. In his opinion, the languages spoken at the time by the people of India were a roadblock to effectively funds allotted by Parliament to improve the country's education. We have to educate a people who cannot at present be educated by means of their mother tongue, he said. The following passage is from Macaulay's Minute on Education, which included the blood and color quote that appeared in the AFP report. In one point I fully agree with the gentleman to whose general views I am opposed. I feel with them that it is impossible for us, with our limited means, to attempt to educate the body of the people. We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, in opinions, in morals and in intellect. To that class we may leave it to refine the vernacular dialects of the country, to enrich those dialects with terms of science borrowed from the Western nomenclature, and to render them by degrees fit vehicles for conveying knowledge to the great mass of the population. India gained independence from British rule in 1947. In sum, there's no record of Lord Macaulay uttering the words cited by Sashi Tharoor in the quote in regard to dominating India in the 1835, though he did express thoughts in writing on the subject of Indian education at the time, including his conviction that the education of Indians should be conducted in English, not Indians' native languages.